people that care about it, we have a responsibility here at DC Water to respond with urgency, rigor, and also humility. And that's what we feel like we have done thus far. We recognize the environmental concerns raised by the residents, the environmental organizations, elected officials, and so forth and so on. This is all real to us here at DC Water, and we really truly understand it. Today, one of the things we want to be clear about and is where we stand today here at DC Water. And DC Water is fully diverting all wastewater away from the damaged section of the interceptor. Our enhanced bypass pumping system, I don't know how many have been out to see what has been constructed, but this pumping system is an unbelievable pumping system that has been put together to divert all flow from the Potomac, from the Potomac River. And Mr. Brown will talk about that later as well. Since February 9th, we have not had any flow into the Potomac River. And so the work that has been done by the DC Water team and contractors and engineers has been Herculean. In some situations, depending on who was in charge of this type of a situation, there could have been millions of gallons of sewage in the Potomac versus the 243 million that we have seen thus far. And so some of these are truly just unbelievable what has happened in the Potomac, and the milestones reflect the extraordinary work that we were able to do. When this thing first broke, we thought that it was going to take us approximately 7 days to divert water from the Potomac, and we completed that exercise within 5 days. And that, again, great work done by Mr. Brown and his team. The environmental monitoring it continues daily. We're doing testing daily. We're seeing some good numbers, especially downstream at the site. And the numbers go down where the sewage was going straight into the Potomac. We're seeing those numbers decrease, but even downstream, we're seeing the numbers get better and better each and every day. We're actually in the District of Columbia. We're seeing them back to normal from a bacterial standpoint in the District of Columbia. And so, we're coordinating closely, though, with federal environmental agencies, the Army Corps of Engineers, state and county, and health departments, emergency management partners, as well as all regional water quality partners as well, as we continue to measure and collect data in the river as well. So we do appreciate all of the partners that we have been able to work with thus far, which includes COG as well in this situation. So and the community engagement that we've had through this situation, we understand that many residents and the Potomac is personal to them, and we get that and we understand that it is where families both fish, walk, reflect on some days, and we do not take lightly the anxiety that those in the community have regarding the Potomac. So our commitment is to share facts and to be very factual, to be transparent, to make sure that the facts that we're sharing are validated, and to strengthen the coordination with all of our partners and to rebuild this asset responsibly, but also make it more resilient than it is today. And that's what we're set out to do, and that's what we are going to do. It is important to note, though, that this incident does not reflect a systematic failure on the Potomac Interceptor. In no way does it reflect that. And however, it does it reinforces the importance of the Potomac Interceptor and the continued investment that must occur in the Potomac Interceptor for us to get to where we need to get to and to be reliable and resilient, and strengthening I think the predictability and those sort of things that are happening and modeling of the Potomac Interceptor as well. In closing, what I would like to say before we allow Mr. Brown to get into his presentation and present some of the artifacts and the facts that we have going on out there at the Potomac Interceptor is, major infrastructure events test an organization, and that this has been a test for us here at DC Water. This failure does not make DC Water. We are still one of the best, if not the best, utility we feel in the United States, and some of the work that is not only in the United States but in the world. And so this incident it's not reflective at all of our capabilities. If anything, it has really shown the capabilities that we have here at DC Water. What defines us is not whether an asset fails, but how do we respond to that asset failure here at DC Water. DC Water responded quickly. We stabilized the system. We continue to work around the clock to protect the river in partnership with our neighboring jurisdictions, and we will rebuild the asset even stronger than what it is today, as I stated earlier. So I want to thank COG for the opportunity for me to address COG and others in the region. And I will now turn it over to Matt Brown, our COO, to talk about some of the technical aspects of this break and what we're doing and how we plan and where we're at today and where we'll be at in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaddis. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Brown. I'm gonna see. Okay, it's working. Can you all see those slides on your screen?
Yes.
Great, perfect. All right, so the Potomac Interceptor runs as far out as Dulles Airport, conveys flow down 54 miles into Blue Plains, serves over 500,000 people, Fairfax, Loudoun counties, Vienna, Herndon, mentioned Dulles Airport, and Montgomery County, Maryland. This map shows the break location. And I have subsequent slides that show this with more specificity. There are two water intakes for the Washington Aqueduct. One is north or upstream of the break location. That's Great Falls, and that's where the water intake that is being used and was being used when the break occurred. There is a smaller intake at Little Falls that is downstream of the break location. The entire asset, like I said earlier, is about 54 miles long. It ranges in diameter from 30 to 96 inches. The site where the break occurred was a diameter of 72 inches. It conveys on average 60 million gallons of sewage a day. Low flow is about 40. It can get up to 100 during wet weather events. We got a lot of calls yesterday and then this morning about the wet weather that we experienced yesterday, and then I guess this overnight. There were no additional overflows overnight. We've got north of 130 million gallons of pumping capacity on site. I'll talk a little bit about that later on. The asset was constructed in the early 60s, and then of course springs flow down to the plains. Apologize, the screen's been a little weird over here. Okay, so this is the specific location of the site. It's just to the east of the American Legion Bridge, and again the break site, 72-inch pipe, and it's reinforced concrete. The Corps of Engineers is on site and want to be helpful. One of the things that they are assisting us with is that there is stormwater that comes off of the American Legion Bridge and goes into the site of the breakage where we're doing our work. The Corps of Engineers is on site and is planning. I don't know yet if they've begun it. They hadn't begun it as of this morning to help move some of that flow away from our construction site. This is the work that we've done. The very first thing that we needed to do was to get a bypass up after that break occurred. So installation of that bypass was the very first priority. As Mr. Gaddis said, it was done very, very quickly. We anticipated it would take a week, got it done in 5 days. And so on Saturday, and I have a timeline in just a second, but Saturday we had 40 MGD of pumping capacity in order to move the majority of the flow that had been going down the Potomac River through the C&O Canal and then back into the Potomac Interceptor. The next stage, after we were able to install the bypass, was to begin to investigate the site. And actually, there's a picture that I didn't show you, and I'm going to go back a couple slides because it shows the construction of the asset. So just real quickly, these are two pictures. The two methods were used. One on the left, cut and cover, and that's representative of the section that broke, as well as tunneling on the right. And as Mr. Gaddis said, it appears that some of the fill that was used was actually debris from the blasting, and so we believe that's where some of the rocks came from, the very large rocks that impeded our progress as we reached the break. So when that happened, we knew that we needed to block off 100% of the flow into the asset so that we could so that people could go down there, manually remove the debris, and then pull up rocks in order to clear the blockage. So that's where we are, is in stage 3, is repair and flow restoration. We began that beginning of February. We anticipate that we will have this work done by mid-March. It encompasses reaching the blockage, removing the blockage, and then reinforcing sections of pipe upstream and downstream with a break so that we can return flow. After flow is returned to the asset, that emergency repair will be done. We have already begun working on environmental restoration efforts. We started that actually a couple of weeks ago. We knew that there would be efforts to restore 3 main areas: the C&O Canal, obviously, where the flow is being diverted now, the drainage channel that carried flow from the break site to the Potomac River. There's a drainage channel that runs under the C&O Canal. And then the third is the Potomac River shoreline to Swainson Island. The pictures on the left, the picture at the bottom, the one to the left is the rock blockage. The one in the middle is the new chamber that was constructed, and you can see the large pumps that are installed. Those are 13 MGD pumps in that pit. In that pit, we installed a sluice gate in order to stop 100% of the flow of the pump from that site. And then the picture to the right is as we reach the top of the pipe. It's I think at that location it was 16 feet below ground. This is a timeline of events. So the first thing that we did, as I said earlier, was to respond. So the night of January 19th, we had people out at the site to try to understand what was going on. We have a odor control facility on Clara Barton Parkway near the breakage site. It alerted us to movement. Upon investigation, we discovered that there was a break and there was water that was going down this channel into the river. Under the light of day, we began putting a plan in place, working with the Park Service. It was a big effort in order to bring in the pumps and get the bypass pumping established and do all of that work. Remove the gates rather from the historic locks along the C&O Canal. A lot of coordination with the National Park Service. The Park Service has actually been really, really great to work with. They were out with us the night of the 24th when we were able to start turning on the pumps and walk the entire distance with us as the flow entered the C&O Canal. We also had to do a bunch of brush clearage. There were plants in the C&O Canal that were removed by our contractors. On the night of the 24th, we had 40 MGD of pumping capacity, 6 pumps at 2 different manhole locations. We did experience some difficulties in the cold. One of the biggest was that the pumps were getting clogged up with rags and grease, and as the pumps were taken out of service in order to clean those, because of the cold weather, they froze up. And so we started building tents with tarps around the pumps and bringing in heaters. That meant that when the pumps clogged up with rags, we were able to take them out of service without them freezing up. We also brought in additional pumps. So brought the pumping capacity to 60 million gallons a day by January 27th. And you can see the dates correspond to the dates of the items that we were able to accomplish correspond with reductions in flow. So January 19th through January 24th, there's approximately 40 million gallons a day that we've calculated in the Potomac River. January 24th, that was reduced significantly to, we estimate, about 5 million gallons a day. And that's because of the pumps being had to be taken out of service and those sort of things. January 28th began a period after we had 60 MGD of pumping capacity where we had very few overflows and very small amounts. In total, it's about 243 million gallons. The chart at the bottom shows estimated overflow volume to the surface waters. Our last overflow to surface waters was February 8th. On February 9th, we had a small spill, about 1,800 gallons that was captured on site and then put back into the Potomac Interceptor. So we've done some grading at the top of the site that allows us to catch minor spills at the top of the hill before it goes down the channel and reaches the Potomac River. We began excavating on January 28th and continued that work until we found the pipe was blocked. And so then we immediately turned on February 6th to begin constructing this bulkhead and bypass chamber. That's where the additional pumping capacity is installed and allows us to fully block off the flow to the Potomac Interceptor. I mentioned earlier we began the environmental restoration early, so that's the yellow one of the top yellow line at the top. And then on January 29th, we began bacteria testing, E. coli testing of the Potomac at 6 locations of the Potomac River. These are the testing locations. There have been 2 that have been added in the last couple of days. We get our results daily with the exception of weekends because of our QA/QC process that we have implemented. One location is north at Old Anglers End, north of the spill site. The second, number 2, is at the spill site, and then locations in the district, Fletcher's Boathouse, Georgetown. Anacostia River, we added Anacostia River at the request of the riverkeeper because of the tidal nature of the Anacostia. There's also a site in Prince George's County, National Harbor. You can see the results, and they're coded in green and red. Green represents that it's under the EPA standard of 410. Where swimming is not recommended when it's outside of the 410. I'll say it that way. The red areas continue to be elevated, and that's expected. That we anticipate that those areas will remain elevated until we can do the environmental remediation work. It's important to note, and I think you all know this, that the E. coli levels vary pretty substantially in the Potomac River. We have some testing data from 2016 that we did as part of our post-construction monitoring of our Clean Rivers program. It seems to range from 10 to 5,000, just depending on the day, rainfall, and other events in the Potomac River. So I think that's one of the things we're going to be able to. What we've said is we want to be able to. We want to ensure that the Potomac River is as we found it prior to this incident, and the testing that we're seeing for E. coli seems to be trending in that direction. Even with some of the outliers or the numbers that exceed the 410, that the one high one was in Anacostia on 2/16, and there was a rainstorm. So we don't believe that event is correlated with the incident at the Potomac Interceptor. This is what the emergency response plan looked like. There's 2 of these, one with the initial plan, and the second is the bulkhead with installation. So the top line is the Potomac Interceptor and the various manholes. The first 2 groups of 3 pumps were the ones that were brought online at the beginning of the incident. And those pump wastewater overland to the C&O Canal, and it's conveyed by gravity downstream. You can see where the break site was, so we obviously needed to move the flow from upstream of the break site and put it back into the Potomac Interceptor downstream. So downstream, we constructed initially 2 flumes, the 48 and the 60-inch flume were constructed. by that Saturday night and put into service that Saturday night. They, and I have a picture in a second, but the wastewater moves from the C&O Canal into those manholes and then it's drop back down to the Potomac Interceptor. That's all to prevent the flow from the failure site into through the drainage channel and then into the Potomac River. This is what we flexed to when we constructed the new bulkhead and bypass chamber, added the additional pumps to block, to cut off flow to the Potomac Interceptor and get 100% of it into the C&O Canal. By adding that 96-inch additional flume, we were able to handle the additional capacity of flow into the C&O Canal. When we put that flume online, levels in the canal dropped. I think it was almost a foot, and so the canal is able to move all of that flow. These are some of the pictures. So the initial overflow occurred again on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The image in the back of that top left picture is our odor control facility. You can see a square structure, and that's what had the camera on it. And then you can see the condition as we found it on the night of the 19th. Flow went down this drainage channel, which normally carries stormwater from the Clara Barton Parkway. There's also appears to be a spring at the bottom. So this is the picture of that channel. The pumps were brought in, and then each of these, all of the pipes were fused on site. So it's one thing to get the pumps there. The second is to do all of the work in order to configure the pipes in order to carry the flow into the C&O Canal. So that was all done on site, all the fusing of the material. Downstream, there were 2 cofferdams constructed and put into place, and then we've also put in an earthen embankment. Some of it was just from the spoils as we dug down to the manhole. There was material that we needed to move. Because of that cold weather, trucks are in short supply, and so we work with the Park Service. So downstream, these 2 cofferdams is an earthen embankment that also serves to allow us to walk back and forth more easily between the C&O towpath and this side of this side of the flumes are. Also serves as extra protection for the C&O Canal. And then the drainage, the channel that moves the flow back from the C&O Canal into the manhole is pictured on the right. So this is the pictures of the operation. The top left picture was taken the night that we were able to put everything into service. So this is the initial flow coming down the C&O Canal. The plastic sheeting was put over the historic locks, and then the flow in the discharge channel and then dropping down to the PI. Safety is important, and not for our crews, for our contractors, but also the people who use the C&O Canal. It's heavily recreated, and so there's fencing that was put up along the C&O Canal. We also put up signage. I think we have a picture of that in another slide. After we got the bypass into operation, we began excavating the failure site, and that's when we encountered the rock block. Again, the picture on the right. After we encountered the rock block, we turned to constructing this new chamber and discharge channel. So that's the chamber there with the sluice gate, and then the pumps. You can see another picture on the top right of the large 13 MGD capacity pumps, and then the facility in operation pumping the wastewater out and then into the C&O Canal and then back into the Potomac Interceptor. Communication's been important. There's a picture of the sign that we posted near the overflow site. Our principal way of communicating is to provide daily updates. So those daily updates are done after our operational call. We've been fortunate to have a member of our marketing and communications department embedded in those operational meetings so that we can explain to the public what's going on with the operation. Those releases, I'm sure you've seen them. They're posted on our websites and to elected officials. That's been a primary way of providing an update every day. We also include the water quality testing results when we have it in that result every day. There's been a lot of coordination. NPS, Coast Guard, FEMA, Corps of Engineers has been on site recently. Maryland Department of Environment, District Department of Energy and Environment. A lot of folks have shown interest, and we've been able to provide tours and show the efforts that the men and women have been able to accomplish to get this done. There've been a lot of media engagements as well, on-camera interviews with our OMAC staff, social media, and then obviously coordination with our federal, state, and local partners, some of which I mentioned earlier.
Matt, before you go ahead and jump to the next slide,
Yeah.
no worries. Just note for all of the members on here, and Mr. Mercer certainly will work through Lisa Reagan, who's been helpful in coordinating the communications team.
We lost you, Kirsten, if you're still talking.
Get Kirsten back. We'll have her jump in. Why don't you all continue?
There is construction that we have planned. Some of this is in procurement in order to make investments of over $600 million in the Potomac Interceptor over the next 10 years. Some of the projects are listed here. The first is slipline and geopolymer that will be done after the emergency work is completed. So it's about a $30 million project that will start in the spring after the emergency repair is done. The next is a longer section removed by geopolymer in order to strengthen the pipe near Lock 10. That's a $95 to $135 million project. You can see the schedule there. And then there's some additional work, PI 02, PI 03, and you can see the estimated cost and the schedule there. So this is an asset that we're actively investing in. Prior to this failure, there was 800 linear feet of slip lining done upstream of the failure location. So that was a project that was completed in the December timeframe. I mentioned earlier about the environmental restoration. We are currently sharing a draft of the plan with National Park Service and MDE. They're doing walkthroughs. We want to make sure that we understand the requirements, and so that I think there's been at least 3 to up the site with those 2 organizations to ensure that we can restore those 3 areas to the conditions that existed prior to the break. We've done that through an environmental consultant that we brought on board again a couple of weeks ago. We walked the site, made recommendations about the environmental restoration plan. Again, those 3 areas are the Sino Canal that's currently being used as a bypass. The second is the drainage channel, which carried the flow into the Potomac River from the break site. And then the third is where the wastewater entered the Potomac River between the shore and Swainson Island. We want to do this as quickly as we can and are working with these organizations to understand requirements so that we can get this done as quickly as possible. It's going to be done in phases. Obviously, the canal is going to require some additional remediation. We'll probably have to we'll probably need to, of course, bring in soil, planting, those kind of things. But what's been identified so far right now is a couple of phases for each of those locations. But again, that's all we're working with MDE and NPS so that we can get that work as quickly as we can. And so that takes us to where we are. Very first thing is to repair and we want to restore flow back to the Potomac Interceptor as quickly as we can. That is the way where we will not have any more overflows. We've been very successful and haven't had an overflow that's impacted the surface water since the 8th. We will. The way to provide 100% assurance that we won't have overflows is to get the flow back in the PI. So we're really focused on that mission right now. We've already made some progress on the environmental restoration in that we have a draft plan and we've had conversations with PS and MDE about it. And again, as soon as we can, we want to be able to start that work. The site is heavily used by recreators. And then we'll continue our rehabilitation work on the greater Potomac Interceptor. It's an important asset, and we'll continue to invest in it. That concludes the presentation I have.
Matt, am I back? I don't know if you can hear
Yeah,
me.
sorry. Let me see if I can go back.
No worries. I apologize. I'm not sure what the technical glitches were, but I did just want to acknowledge Mr. Mercer and Lisa Reagan for their efforts to coordinate us on a communications front. And certainly, Monica, one of the two most important takeaways too is that we have two public meetings. They're community briefings that we're doing in partnership. The first is Wednesday, and that's 7 p.m. at the DC Water headquarters. And then the second is on Thursday, February 26th at Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland. Both will be, there will be live streaming opportunities and engagement there, and tabling efforts from both, our regional partners on an environmental perspective and public health perspective. So we just wanted to make sure you all have that information and can share that effectively through your distribution list, because we want to ensure interested residents, advocacy groups, and whomever, our environmental partners, have an opportunity to engage and hear this type of feedback with us. Thank you, and apologies for the technical glitch. Not sure what happened earlier.
No, that's fine. That's great. And we'll make sure that we send out to obviously our entire listserv, and we've got our comms director here who manages all the PIOs in the region. So if there's meetings coming up and ability for the public to engage even more on this and hear, we want to get that information out. And please use the chat, folks, as we have the next couple of presentations for running questions, and we'll have DC Water back on in just a few moments. I know folks will have questions at the end, but if you think of them during the presentation, put them in the chat so we can get those answered and addressed. But we'll hear next from Dr. Schultz with the Interstate Commission on the Potomac River, ICPR. They've done some great work on modeling the effects of this break and what that means, downriver. So, Dr. Schultz, you're up.
Thanks very much. I'm Sherry Schultz with ICPRB's section for cooperative water supply operations on the Potomac. And we were asked to talk about some of the spill modeling we've done in relation to this event. Next slide, please. So we've done two preliminary modeling efforts, and both of them are related to public health concerns and pathogen levels in the vicinity of the break. The first one was requested by Maryland Department of Environment and EPA Region 3. We modeled pathogen levels in the vicinity between the break and Chain Bridge. And the second one was done just recently at the request of the district, modeling travel speeds of pathogens in the vicinity of the district. I did want to just touch on potential environmental issues of interest to ICPRB. Our purview is the entire Potomac Basin, including the Potomac estuary. So I just wanted to talk about what I've heard from our aquatic ecologists and water quality specialists about the future of the estuary in the next year or two. Next slide, please. So just stepping back for 1 second, why are we involved in this at all? We have a spill response role in the region. Typically, if a spill of a contaminant occurs into the Potomac River or a reservoir, our spill team provides estimates to water suppliers as fast as we can. When will the contaminant reach my intake? How high will contaminant concentrations be at my intake? Here's a map on the right of the spatial extent of one of our models, the emergency river spill model. So on January 19th, we received notice of the sewage release late that evening and ascertained quickly that it was downstream of any water supply intake that was being used at the time. So we didn't model it. It wasn't really threatening an intake. But on January 25th, MDE and Region 3 requested some modeling analysis for us. Next slide, please. So the first thing we did on the 25th, modeling pathogen levels in the vicinity of the break. So we used this model we use most frequently, the emergency river spill model, to take a look at bacteria concentrations downstream of the break, but really in a very short stretch of the river. This model's extent is just down to Chain Bridge. So we were looking at concentrations over this period, over a 5-day period from the 19th to the 24th, just down to Chain Bridge. And we modeled fecal coliform bacteria. That's an indicator of pathogen presence. There are many other species of bacteria that may be of concern, but if you understand fecal coliform concentrations, you can make some estimates of other concentrations. So our modeling and all modeling uses many estimates and simplifying assumptions. The model results are just estimates and really should be taken as an indication, a heads up, and an indication of when and where monitoring should occur. So we assume that the sewage release began on January 19th at 4 p.m. and lasted 5 days, 120 hours, and that's what we knew on the 25th. And the release rate we were asked to model was 40 to 60 million gallons per day of raw sewage entering the river. One of the assumptions, this model, it's just called a one-dimensional model. It assumes that the contaminant, the bacteria in this case, is completely uniformly mixed up both across the river and up and down the water column. And when we did this modeling, river flow was pretty low, about 2,000 cubic feet per second. We made a typical assumption of the concentration of bacteria in raw sewage, about 10 million, a count of about 10 million per 100 milliliters. And another thing that our model does take into account is bacteria die-off. And we found that the die-off rate is fairly rapid, even though it was very cold. We assumed it was about 1 degree centigrade. A half-life of bacteria, according to the simple model we used, was about 3 days. And the simple model predicts that in about 10 days, bacteria levels will fall by about 90%. This does depend on temperature. Next slide, please. So I won't show you the modeling results, but here are the key takeaways for this first modeling activity with our ERSM model. I just wanted to stress again, the release was downstream of all water supply intakes, except Washington Aqueduct's Little Falls intake, which is a backup, and we knew that it wasn't being used at the time. Our model was showing fecal coliform levels between 200,000 and 400,000 counts per 100 milliliters, and E. coli levels of between 70 and 125,000 counts per milliliter. More or less in the ballpark of what some of the monitoring is showing. And again, this was just in the area downstream of the breach down to Chain Bridge. And it was assuming just a 5-day release that then shut off. So when the sewage did stop flowing into the river, according to the model, predicted bacteria concentrations fell quite quickly to near background levels due to die-off and also due to flushing and dilution by river flow. So our model predicted that at Little Falls, at Washington Aqueduct's Little Falls intake, bacteria level after the release stopped would fall down to near background in about a half day to 1 day. And at Chain Bridge, the model estimates that bacteria would fall to near background levels in about 1 day. So that was fairly optimistic. There are caveats to this modeling, as always, considerable uncertainties. The concentration of bacteria in sewage, that's just a very rough estimate. Bacteria die-off rate is uncertain. It depends on temperature. And then another process that our model can't represent? The deposition of solid material onto the riverbed, and that could prolong the impacts that we're going to see. Next slide, please. The second modeling exercise was done more recently for the district. Again, they're interested in in public health aspects of this release. So they wanted us to model the travel speed of the bacteria in the vicinity of Washington, D.C. So we used another model that we have that extends farther down, actually all the way down into the Potomac estuary. It's called Icy Water. It was developed by EPA and others. It's currently maintained by a contractor for the U.S. Army. So Icy Water allowed us to look at estimates of net mean velocities of water in the Potomac estuary, and that will tell us how fast the bacteria would be carried down the estuary, down to the edge of the DC border. So again, our objective here, this was again preliminary, is to just estimate mean travel speeds of a contaminant release. More estimates and simplifying assumptions. Again, the release location we assumed was near I-495 and the Clara Barton Parkway. Again, we assume bacteria is uniformly mixed laterally and vertically in the river. And we used a different flow because by this time we'd had some precipitation events. So we chose a typical Potomac River flow for this time of year of about 10,000 cubic feet per second. Next slide, please. Takeaway from the second modeling exercise. So according to our modeling and our assumptions, in the event of a short-term release, we didn't really specify in this second modeling exercise what was released and how much was released. But in the event of a short-term release, pathogen levels would flow past the DC southern border in less than 1 day. Pretty rapid. Caveats again, our model doesn't consider processes which could prolong impacts, including transport and oscillation by tidal currents, and deposition of solid material onto the riverbed. Next slide, please. Finally, I want to say a little bit about the Potomac estuary downstream of DC, all the way down to Smith's, Colonial Beach, Smith's Point, places that you may visit sometime, but probably aren't thinking about right now. And here we don't have any modeling capabilities to investigate or explore what might happen. It's possible that the Chesapeake Bay program's estuarine model would be useful here. But the potential impacts that I have heard about from our aquatic ecologists and water quality specialists at ISCPRB in future months, maybe this summer, maybe for a number of years. First of all, the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus from the sewage, may increase growth of algae downstream and may increase the likelihood this summer of harmful algal blooms. Secondly, the deposition of sewage sludge, again, a solid sewage material on the riverbed, may increase biological oxygen demand this summer in the sediments, the river sediments, and the likelihood of fish kills. So these are things that are definitely going to need some investigation by environmental scientists. Next slide, please. Final takeaways. In terms of water supply, and that's the purview of my group, of course, we want timely completion of repairs, and we hear that that's definitely happening, and we're very grateful about that. And these are important because Washington Aqueduct's Little Falls intake is just a backup, but it is important, and it's especially important in case we're hit by severe drought this summer, because in that case, they do need to switch to the Little Falls intake if flows fall below certain levels. And secondly, certain sections of the Potomac Interceptor are above essential water supply intakes, other intakes, and should be prioritized, we feel, for future repairs. And we can see this in Matt Brown's, in the material that Matt showed us, that definitely there are repairs that are going to take place upstream. But this was requested in a letter by our executive director, Mike Nardolilli, to EPA Region 3 on the 29th of January. As far as public health concerns, when sewage stops entering the river, bacteria concentrations, we expect them to fall to near background levels quickly due to die-off of bacteria and flushing by river flow. And certainly modeling and monitoring have complementary roles. So really now we think it's that monitoring is most important, and it looks like DC Water and the district are doing monitoring. Secondly, finally, risk from residual solid materials remaining on the riverbed is uncertain. This could make some hazardous effects linger, and there's uncertainty there. And lastly, environmental issues in the Potomac estuary downstream of DC. The risks include elevated likelihood of fish kills and harmful algal blooms. And definitely analyses are going to be needed to understand the potential magnitude of the environmental impacts in the estuary. Last slide, please. So if you have any questions, here's the emails of myself and all of ICPRB's spill response team. Thanks a lot.
Dr. Schultz, thank you, and thank you for sharing all that contact information. And we did say it in the chat, but these slide decks will be shared with everybody and posted on our site. And this meeting is being recorded as well, so we'll be able to share that. I see a couple questions here in the chat. We're going to make sure all these questions get answered, whether it's on this call or follow up in writing to make sure they get answered. But as we go into the next section, which is existing monitoring efforts and communication with Jonathan Champion from the District of Columbia, he's the Associate Director of Water Quality, and Kirsten Williams, the DC Water Chief Administrative Officer. We did get a question that's kind of relevant to both from Mr. Roband, who's the DEQ Director in Virginia, about whether testing on the Virginia side of the river might be possible, along with a public meeting in Virginia. And these slides will be shared, Mr. Roband, with you. But those two are both kind of communication and monitoring. So maybe it's a tee up and incorporate that into the feedback here on the Jonathan and Kirsten, if you will, and hand it over to you now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, if you'll permit me, I think I'm going to leave my video off just in the interest of trying to minimize bandwidth issues. But I do have a couple of slides that I can share. Wanted to provide a quick overview and summary of where things stand in terms of the district's monitoring posture at the moment. Is that coming through okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is actually, I think, picking up on some of the information that DC Water had shared from their presentation. They have been monitoring daily since the end of January at 6 sites throughout the Potomac River. DOEE is also conducting our own monitoring effort that is covering, I would say, in some cases, stations that are co-located or very nearby DC Water's stations, and in some cases are filling in some spatial gaps in the district where DC Water is sampling. And so we are currently conducting weekly sampling from 3 sites in the Potomac, 1 site in Washington Channel, and 2 sites on the Anacostia. Just for context and background, DOEE's typical monitoring posture at this time of year would be conducting monthly sampling, which we step up to a weekly bacteria sampling between May and September. So the first sampling event post-collapse that we captured was collected on February 9th and 10th. And subsequent to that, our team was out in the field last week as well. I believe we captured a sample on February 17th. We are currently working on a plan to increase that sampling frequency to daily, to essentially match the frequency that DC Water are sampling. That is going to require, I think, a fair amount of resources beyond what our water quality program typically operates with. So we're in the midst of getting all of that organized and planned now. But our target date to start that sampling is March 2nd, or certainly at least sometime the week of March 2nd. And so I also just wanted to provide an overview of the results that DOEE has seen itself. Having a hard time advancing the slide. There we go. All right. So based on these results, you can see that for the first weekly sampling event the DOEE conducted, all of the monitoring results that we collected came in below the water quality standard for contact recreation of 410 MPN per 100 milliliters. For the more recent sampling event on the 17th, all of the Potomac results and the ship channel, as well as one of the Anacostia values, were below that water quality standard. We did have one elevated result further upstream in the Anacostia by Pennsylvania Avenue Bridge. I think Mr. Brown alluded to this in his presentation as well. We're confident that that result is more associated with stormwater runoff due to a rain event that was happening, in the day and a half leading up to the sampling event. It's also consistent with other testing that was done further upstream in the Anacostia and some of the tributaries by Anacostia Riverkeeper. So we do not believe that there's any indication that that elevated concentration has anything to do with the discharge from the interceptor collapse. That is largely where things stand. As I said, I think we're going to be standing up a daily monitoring cadence, looking to get that operating next week. We are trying to get, at the moment, while we're sampling weekly, we have a frequently asked questions document, and we're posting our sampling results on DOEE's website. We're trying right now to get that updated every Friday as results are coming in. As we move to daily sampling, we'll be shifting that to daily updates as well. I think maybe that is the best spot for me to leave it for now, unless there are questions that I can respond to as we carry on. But I wanted to just make sure that everybody had, my contact information as well. If there are questions or anything that, folks would like to bring to DOEE's attention.
Thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan, and you may be the right person to ask this to, or if you can just kind of commit to following up after on Mr. Rolban's question, just coordinating with DEQ and MDE1. It sounds like they're sharing information to try to get one kind of consolidated map, and then two, just any insight on testing on the Virginia side of the river for that sampling. And don't have to answer right now, but if you could just maybe connect with Mr. Rolban and see what might be possible on that question, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I can at least drop an initial response in the chat, which hopefully is helpful.
Okay. I assume you guys are connected, but if not, we're happy to connect you. So thank you. Kirsten and DC Water on communications, which is definitely an important element of this. And I see you did put in the chat, and we will send out over email the public hearings that are coming up. And we did have the one question about, we've got some DC and one in Maryland. Would there be the ability to add a public hearing in Virginia as well? So also for Mr. Robins, I'm happy to connect you with him, although we have some members electeds from Virginia as well. I can connect you directly with. But Kirsten, if you want to talk a little bit more about the communications plan now, that would be great. Thanks.
And certainly, I think this is a testament to exactly why these meetings are critical for us. Our efforts from the outset has been really to kind of think about our phasing and communication strategy in three approaches. And my colleague, Mr. Brown, when he was going through our slides, talked about that. But it's really started with being grounded in urgency. You know, we initially wanted to ensure from the outset that we could communicate all of the details as they were coming, certainly grounded in facts, and then really a coordinated effort with our jurisdictions. So much of this is an interjurisdictional issue when you think about the Potomac Interceptor. And we are at the stage now where we've moved from the containment and public safety aspects. We've gone from phase 2, which is something that will be ongoing, which is really the environmental monitoring and data reporting. And from my lens, certainly as the chief administrative officer, as we think about communications and stakeholder engagement, it's really to ensure that all of our partners in local government and in the media, the residents who are concerned, tourists, actually understand the duration. We've tried to make sure we could kind of bite-size this very technical project and to make sure that we are explaining it away. But we understand it is very detailed and it's nuanced, especially when you start thinking about coordination with, you know, federal partners like FEMA and then HCEMA in the district, or EPA and EPA Region 3 and the Maryland Department of Environment. There are a lot of organizations and entities as we really move into phase 3, which I think will spark a lot of ongoing communication and partnership that is needed. And that's really in the remediation planning efforts. So these community meetings that we are having this week, we're also having kind of a stakeholder specific group with our environmental organizations, those who kayak, the boating associations, the river keepers, et cetera. We want to make sure we stay engaged. We are utilizing our website and social media as kind of those touch points, but certainly we need more help as we want to make sure everyone is engaged and informed. So if there are PIOs who have not been connected with us on this project, and again, I see Lisa in the chat about the COG PIO call, that was very helpful. We want to make sure the updates on all of the various websites can be cross-linked. So where we're putting DOEE's information, Maryland's information about data sampling and those results. The government affairs coordination is really critical too. If you are in need of a briefing and want us to make sure as local elected officials, you have an understanding, constituent concerns or questions are coming your way, please reach out to us or through Lisa Reagan. She can connect with our government affairs team. This is certainly for us one that we recognize the environmental sensitivity of the Potomac River, and we share in that concern. I think Mr. Gaddis started off really in his remarks talking about the magnitude of this. So a lot of it is perception, and as we stay kind of grounded in the science with this project, as we move through the various phases, we are just asking today for continued partnership in that education and outreach, because it will be critical, you know, as we move through the final remediation and thinking about, you know, those historic elements, the C&O Canal, the tourism, you know, that happens along this region, and the importance to not steer individuals away from what, you know, we all love as the mighty Potomac. So thank you for that opportunity, Clark.
No, of course. And we've got one more presentation here, and then we'll roll into questions. I know Chair Collins will start with one. Let's get through the next presentation, which is our very effective and great public health team, which is the last few years has had their hands full with regional public health issues to work on. But Dr. Keisha Davis chairs the health committee for COG of Montgomery County's chief health officer, and Luke Davies coming to us from Virginia's Department of Health. He's the district director. Dr. Davis and Luke, if you could please talk a little bit about public health concerns related to this, and then we will open up into questions. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us join. I'm actually going to defer to Sean O'Donnell, who is our Deputy Chief of Public Health, who's going to walk through a brief presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Okay, can you all see the presentation?
We can.
Okay, great. So a number of things I'm going to share with you, we've already covered with some of our other presenters, so I'll move through some of it rather quickly so we can get to the questions. We've covered most of the roles and responsibilities where the public health agencies, the state agencies, as well as your local health department's concerns are. It is protecting the health of our populations who live or are visiting areas or recreate on the Potomac River or affected areas. We have been having ongoing conversations with our state and local partners, not just within the health department, but with our environmental protection agencies at the state level, at the local level, and between Maryland, DC, Virginia. We've come together. We have a lot of experience working together. And so we've been discussing and determining what things are critical for the public to be aware of, where we want to set safety standards, and also critically understanding the differences between the different locations and how they're affected differently by this spill. So some of the key health and environmental impacts that many of you are aware of, but just want to go through them. Of course, one of the highest levels is our drinking water. And as it's been shared, the intakes for the drinking water, the treatment of drinking water, none of those have been impacted. The intakes are upriver. All of the treatment capacities have still been working successfully. So we don't have a concern at this point of drinking water. We also in Montgomery County, because of the proximity to where the spill has been, we've reached proactively out to our partners who do some of the permitting of local wells. We haven't identified any local wells that would be impacted from this either. Another thing that is critical, we have both commercial and private fishing areas, as well as shellfish collections. There is a precautionary closure in adjacent to Charles County to the Nice Bridge. And so until we get additional information back, that area is closed to shellfish harvesting. Other areas, however, downriver that do commercial or private shellfish harvesting have not been closed. I can share with you that our health officers in those areas are looking at the data. They're making sure they're being very cautious about this, but we do want to differentiate how this is affecting our jurisdictions differently. As far as recreation goes, again, several of the counties that border the Potomac River have issued health advisories. Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Charles County, as well as Virginia Department of Health and DOEE have all issued health advisories related to the river. Those advisories are very similar. However, some of the contact is more, there's slight differences in how that contact has been worded. In all cases, where public health is recommending to avoid activities that would submerge you in the river because of the increased bacterial levels. In particular, as you've seen from the testing data, the areas outside of Montgomery County are very, very, very high levels. So we're recommending to avoid all contact with the water at this time. And then again, we're tracking on the containment and how any additional spills or leakages can affect the water. And we are working closely with all of our partners who are doing water testing. Within the public health guidance, uh, you've heard about the public health standards for E. coli levels around 410 parts per million, uh, per 100 milliliters. Again, it's important to know that that's not a safe drinking level. That is a safe recreating level. If you're in areas of any waterway that has E. coli, we're not recommending to drink that water, or we're also, cautioning people if you have open wounds. That's another way you can get an infection from E. coli. We do know that not only the Potomac River, but some of our other waterways can have a range of E. coli levels day to day, week to week, throughout the year. A lot of these levels are tested during the spring through fall time when people are more likely to recreate, and baselines are tracked. During the winter time, that data is not as available because there's much less recreation. So our partners are collecting that. We are looking at that to help us understand what the advisory should be, when they should be lifted, or when they should be altered. I went through a number of what the advisories include, not just for our residents and our visitors, but also if you have pets, try to please keep the pets away from the water. They don't read the signs that are posted there, and if they go in the water, they could become sick. If you do have an accidental contact with the water, please use routine hygiene standards to clean out any contamination. And then some of the common illnesses you'd see from being exposed to this bacteria: gastroenteritis, ear, nose, or throat infections, rashes, or even wound infections if you had an open cut. What I'm sharing here is just a map of where those public health advisories go, and it collectively between Virginia, DC, and Maryland counties. In fact, they go just a little bit further beyond that orange line because they continue down through Charles County. And that's where the contact advisories have been listed. Again, these have all been posted online. You can see what the different jurisdictions have mentioned as specific activities to avoid. And then I've just shared the map where there is that precautionary shellfish prohibition currently. I know we've seen what DOEE, what DC Water, where they're collecting. Maryland Department of the Environment is updating a map as well, showing some of the locations where they have been collecting specimens. Those results will start to get published to their website as well. And we've had discussions with them about testing in other specific locations as time goes on, just to verify results from our partners. And they said they're happy to support us in that. And then we can actually go to the open questions, but in general, we're, again, recommending to avoid unnecessary contact with the Potomac River. In particular, as we've said about other diseases, vulnerable populations, including immunocompromised individuals, or those with very young children. Those are the folks who are at increased risk for serious illness. We want pet owners to be aware and keep their pets on a leash and away from the contaminated water. When we say boaters, it kind of depends. We've already had questions from our residents who are getting ready for their spring crew practices. There are people who kayak and people who do other boating on the water. Again, there's a risk in any boat for people to get exposed, to go overboard or be flipped. At the level of contamination we have along Montgomery County, we're preaching caution to not really come in contact with the water at all right now. But as you can see, as you go further down river, that risk starts to dissipate quite a bit. We're also recommending that people do not fish or consume anything they catch out of the water. Again, as you go further down river, those precautions change a little bit. Most fish don't harbor as much bacteria as, say, some of the shellfish might. And then for those who are walking or cycling through the CNO Canal towpath, there shouldn't be a danger to that. It's probably not going to be very pleasant as you smell the sewage that's there, but we do appreciate that fencing has been put up around the containment area. And so again, those are just the key things we want to address. I appreciate our partners. I've borrowed many of the language here from our partners at DOEE or some of our other health departments. Again, we're trying to make sure that we're being consistent in the messages we've given out, even though different portions of the river have been affected in different ways. Happy to turn it back over to my health official colleagues if they have any additional things they'd like to add.
Sean, thank you. And did is Luke Davies on from Virginia Department of Health? Is he also going to present in this?
Yes, I am. I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Davis and Sean for that presentation. The Virginia Department of Health has been primarily working in a support capacity to Maryland and DC for this. We have been working to prioritize communication and advisories out to the public, as was shared by Sean. I'm just going to share some monitoring that VVH has been doing really quickly here. So essentially, we've been monitoring shellfish primarily down below the 301, the colonial area where Virginia the shellfish start. And on February 17th, we sampled about 36 different water samples, and all of them were below the levels, usually below the safe level. So at this point, we do not have any of the shellfish on the Virginia side that have been impacted on the lower Potomac. And again, we are working primarily in a support role and evaluating future risk as we monitor the situation. We have worked with different localities and parks along the Potomac and health districts along the Potomac to issue advisories and post signs for potential contamination, similarly to what Sean has presented, to help people advise and have them make the best decisions for their safety for water recreation. And I do have Lance Gregory on from our Office of Environmental Health, who's been essential in partnering with Virginia's Department of Environmental Quality as well. No, Lance, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Appreciate that, Dr. Davies. I think y'all have covered this very well. Really, at this point, I think a lot of the public concerns that we're hearing is just communication from the public. They want us to over communicate on any updates on the incident, on the repairs, water sampling results, which I see Director Rolban posted some link in the chat there to our the water results that DEQ has collected, in addition to the routine shellfish sampling that we've collected. We're starting to get questions about when will the recreational advisory be lifted for Virginia. And so at this point, we're just trying to emphasize that the advisory is going to remain in effect until sustainable repairs are complete. But we are continuing to review information as that comes in water sample data, and we'll update as appropriate. So I appreciate everybody's communication and support in the communication we've been getting from Washington, D.C. and from Maryland.
Okay, thank you. We've got about 10 more minutes left, and I know our chair from COG is on, Mr. Reuben Collins from Charles County, and had a question earlier. Chair Collins, do you still have a question?
Yeah, I'm still here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm again Reuben Collins, chair of COG. Two questions. The first is, will this information be readily available to the public, perhaps in the form of some type of update document that could be shared to our residents? And the second question is more specific to the precautionary closure near the Nice Bridge that was described. What triggered the actual precautionary closure, and do you anticipate that closure will be lifted in the relatively near future?
So that closure was issued by the Maryland Department of Environment, who has the regulatory authority for the shellfish testing and harvesting. Um, I, my understanding is that was precautionary. I don't know what timetable they have. I did list where the closure link is online, but we can check with them in our daily conversations to find out if they have any timetable on it. I would imagine first of all they do routine testing even before the spill for all of the shellfish areas in Maryland, just to ensure that it's safe. And so this was, I think, the closest one to the spill, that they have a shellfish collection closure. And so again, I would defer to their testing of these locations for the determination of when they will reopen.
Okay, and Chair Collins, this entire presentation here is recorded and will be on our website, and Steve Kanya will drop a link to it as well for folks. And all the presentations that were given today will also be shared. We do have a background doc that we sent to folks on just kind of the current situation to date. That is certainly available as well. I think a couple themes have come out of this call. There's a lot of different groups doing monitoring and doing testing. And I think to the extent, and we have a number of COG staff on here, as well as our head of data analytics, to the extent those can be pulled together to show a holistic map of what testing is going on, I think that would be our discussion, at least, of if that's possible. I think that would be helpful. There's some shellfish and marine resources questions. I saw Mr. Rolban asked about the blue catfish industry, asking is their industry affected? I think in listening to some of the folks talk, obviously shellfish sounds like it's more acute, but and as we go further downstream, not as much of a concern. But that's a specific question I would ask. Blue catfish, what should that industry be thinking, doing right now? Who would be the right person to answer that? No, any takers? Okay, well, we're gonna.
Clark, I'll just tell you that I keep getting asked that question by several members of General Assembly and also VMRC. So I don't know the answer, but if there's someone that could help us, we'd appreciate it.
No, I'm not surprised you've gotten that question. In addition to Director Rolban asking about, I'm sure there's some of our Virginia members be willing to host for a public hearing and testing on the Virginia side. We also have a question from Prince George's County. Just where exactly in Prince George's County is the testing occurring? Let me see here. Let me scroll a little bit down. Areas like Fort Washington, Marina, National Harbor, and obviously concern about the wetlands. It holds on to contamination as it moves downstream. Anyone want to answer specifically where in Prince George's County that monitoring is happening? And if other folks have questions about adding monitoring, who would they contact and how would they go about getting that being considered? Would that be DC Water, DOE, or someone saying, hey, I'd love to see more monitoring being done in location X? Who would be the right person for our localities? Who would they go to?
So, Mr. Mercer, for DC Water's perspective, we do have one site that is around the National Harbor area in Prince George's County. I don't know the specific location, but I certainly can share that and get it from our team and share that with Lisa Reagan for awareness. I can't speak to what efforts DOEE is doing outside of the district or what MDE is doing in their selection of locations for testing, but we're happy to pass that along if there are specifics to make the points of contact for whoever raised the question.
Okay, we'll consolidate the questions we've got in the
Hello.
chat and then put it. Yeah. Is that?
Sorry. This is Evelyn Hoban from Prince George's County. It's my understanding that there's testing going on at National Harbor as well as near the Fort Washington Park and Marina. And I believe that's being done by Maryland Department of the Environment. And that's probably the best organization to go to at this point because we're trying to coordinate the sampling efforts. So I would go to Maryland Department of the Environment.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So Steve, and for our own water team, I mean, it sounds like this is a natural thing for us to help coordinate the right folks on this call. One, consolidating where all this testing and monitoring is happening by the different entities. And for anyone that has a hand raised, it says, hey, how about location X? Our team can help run down the right person for these folks to talk to and see whether we can add that monitoring or why not and get back to them. And then I think consolidating all that into one place so you don't have to go to 3 or 4 different websites to see where all the monitoring is happening would be good. Sullivan Gassman on the chat has a question about the Washington Aqueduct backup intake.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Sullivan Gassman with Congressman Norton's office. So it was mentioned that the Washington backup intake was not in use. So was there no contamination because it wasn't in use, or was there just no impact to the local drinking water, but there was contamination?
This is Nina Hallisey. I'm the chief operations of the plant operations of the Washington Aqueduct. There was no impact. No contaminated water ever even came to either plants. We've only been on Great Falls for the entirety of it. Yep.
Great. All right, folks, we're right almost here at 2:30. Thank you all. Everyone's getting pulled in a lot of different directions to share information, and every day there's more news. I certainly have one about what the federal support will look like. I saw this morning that was something that looked like a positive response to Mayor Bowser's request for federal assistance. I'm sure folks have other questions. We're going to consolidate what we have here in the chat, and Steve Bieber, who runs our water team here, is going to help us kind of get a better handle on consolidating all these different monitoring efforts. And then Kirsten, certainly talking with you and the PIO call tomorrow, helping get the word out and to as many communities as we need to. Everyone's working hard, and we want to make sure we share this information with as many folks as possible. So thanks everyone for getting on today and for everything that you do. And let's have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.